Whoa, and I stopped that a little premature, hit the wrong button, but you know what? This isn't a professional production. This is just some dude sitting in a room talking to a computer. And that dude is Scott. That is me. I am the Sober Heathen. Welcome to another episode of the Sober. I promise I am the Sober Heathen podcast. You can now, I am going through Buzzsprout and Acast, which I think I'm going to have to pick between the two, but that's neither here nor there. Those help me get on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and others that I cannot think of. I don't know how long, once I figure this out, if I'll just be sticking on YouTube or if there's other ways to try to make a little money to make podcasts more gooder, as they say. Yes, I heard you. You said, no, they don't say that. You know who you are. So kind of another impromptu one. This isn't one that I wrote notes for or anything in jail. Those I'm saving for a rainy day. But today, what moved me is, well, first I had quite the spiritual experience, which I want to make sure that I mention that. And I had to call my good buddy to verify that I'm not crazy for the significance. And the other thing that seemed to come up a lot today are people in recovery and who you can depend on, who you can't, who you should depend on, who and when you shouldn't depend on them. And we've mentioned it before in the podcast about not cutting people out, just cutting them off. And those two are dramatically different, in my opinion. So first, the spiritual experience. Obviously, I want to look like Mr. T, or I want to look like Flavor Flav or something. All this, jewelry that I'm wearing. I really don't want to look like Flavor Flav. Yeah, boy. And I don't want to look like Mr. T with all this jewelry. That is not my purpose. But each one of these things means something to me spiritually. In fact, the smaller bird skull on here was something I was drawn one day. I was in treatment in the recovery home, sober living home, and just out of nowhere, I got, I wore necklaces before. I wore watches minimally. Didn't wear a ring a whole lot. I mean, I did a little bit when I was married, but I also couldn't wear it at work, so I wasn't a real big jewelry guy. And something moved me to go to the jewelry store of all places up in Petoskey, and I found this bird skull, and it related to a lot of things that I'd started to look into. And I started looking into the Asatru, I hate the word religion, but the Asatru belief system. So that's why I wear that. And then I bought the other skull to represent Odin's ravens, the two of them, Munin and Hugin, thought and memory. Since I'm going to the Asatru gods, and Odin is the one that I really identify with the most, I got that. But I also have Thor's hammer, and Gary and Freki are the two wolves. They're Odin's wolves as well. All of a sudden, this is turning into a jewelry podcast, but the spiritual experience is what I'm getting to. I've had experiences before I call more of paranormal, not really spiritual, because I'm really into the paranormal as well. But today I got another piece of jewelry. I find some good cheap stuff online, and came in a really neat wooden box. And some people that listen to this, they know that I've done some rune casting, and runes again has something to do with Odin. And man, I think I told this story about how the runes, I cast them, and I took the one's face up and I made words, and it told me that hit the mic there. Hope that wasn't loud. And it gave me a message that was meant for one person, and that one person was the only one that really understood it, and it blew my mind, and that's what got me to buy in to Asatru and talking with Odin and the Asir. Anyway, so today I get this box, I get the jewelry out, and the jewelry is pretty cool, and I'm like, man, this is a really neat wooden box. I'm going to see if my runes will fit in it. So I get my wooden runes out and I put them in, and holy crap, they fit perfectly. There was no wiggle room. It was like the box is made for that. And long story short, the runes were kind of invaded kind of like Christianity invaded the Norse people. But anyway, that's not a recovery podcast. But anyway, it was kind of invaded, and they there's 24 runes in the Elder Futhark rune system, and a blank rune was added. Well, there was no blank rune. It's not supposed to be in there. And I didn't know. I have more than one set of runes, and I know which ones have a blank one. And I didn't know these particular wood ones had them. And those are my favorite ones to do casting. Anyway, I'm putting the runes in this box. I got 24 of them, 8 on 8 on 8. They fit perfectly. And I see this extra rune. I'm like, what the heck? What is it? Something's not right. And I grab it, and it's the blank freaking rune. I picked up 24 runes, not paying attention to any of them, and stacked them in there nice and neat. I mean, they fit so perfect. It's like, seriously, it's like the box is meant for it. And the rune that was left out was the blank rune. 24 for 24, I picked up other runes. What are the chances of that happening? And it just happened after I got a phone call that I was supposed to have an interview at 8 a.m. tomorrow. And because I don't have a license, that interview is not going to happen. I give the lady props for going to HR and asking questions and seeing if there's some way they could work around it, and they cannot. So finding a job is going to be difficult. I knew it was going to be difficult. I did some rune casting for myself, and the runes told me that there's going to be delays, and I'm going to have to be patient. And here we are. So just kind of a spiritual thing that happened. And, I went from a guy that doesn't wear jewelry to this and this, and I burn candles. There's a candle in here. I burn incense almost all day long, and it really helps me feel connected, and it really calms me down. So it's very important to me these days, and that's okay. But anyway, when this happened, I had to call my friend and say, dude, this feels like something great. But the skeptic inside of me was like, but he confirmed, because we have a lot of the same thought processes when it comes to that stuff. He confirmed that's pretty outstanding. It's really odd that happened. So anyway, on to the topic of who we can trust, who we should trust, or who we should lean on. As far as trust goes, the way to find out if you can trust somebody is to trust them. That's the only way that you can find out. You give them some information, you confide in them, you ask them to do something for you. And if they repeatedly fail you, or they tell you something that you told them in confidence, there's your answer. It's really the only way to know if you can trust somebody or not, is to just trust them. And you have to make yourself vulnerable. When it comes to addiction and recovery, you have to make sure that you are not relying on anybody but yourself. You can't be doing it for anybody but yourself. And again, anything that I say on here that you disagree with, I would enjoy comments and feedbacks where you can give me another perspective, because if anything, I like to think of myself as somebody that thinks outside the box on things. And you never know what one perspective, there could be 100 different takes on a certain thing, and one out of those 100 is going to help that person that's listening today. So, I always say like and comment and share and do all these things. I still need you to do that to make the podcast grow. But the comments are the most important, because you never know who's going to read it. And if you have some good information, or you feel a certain way, or you have a question, maybe somebody else has that same question they're afraid to ask. It's having a conversation with a good friend, and this person is in a relationship now, and it's going very well. And the indications through what this person was saying is that they're going to lean heavily on this person to help keep them sober. And I was engaged to somebody that I loved with all my heart, and that wasn't enough for me to stop. My kids are very important to me. So many people that have children that are in addiction, those children mean the world to me. They would die for their children, literally. I mean, I would die for the people in my inner circle. I have no problems with that. The problem was on the inside, and I didn't like this person looking back at me in the mirror. And it wasn't until I let go of what my kids thought of me, what my ex-fiance thought of me. And I had to let go for that for a period of time. You can't just let go of that entirely. You have to care about what people think. Otherwise, you're just going to be a prick. But my point is, I had to focus on myself and find a way to like myself. And today, after getting the news that this is a really cool job, um, I got hit pretty hard, man. I was pretty emotional. I was cussing at the window because the window didn't open right, and as if it's the window's fault. It was me not lifting it up. It's an old house. Anyway, I made my bed and I was like throwing the sheet around, like it's the sheet's fault. That's just me trying to deal with me and projecting it onto inanimate objects. So what did I do? I sat down, I went to a meeting. The meeting was a joke. They didn't know who the facilitator was. It started 15 minutes late. Everybody in the meeting was complaining about it. It's like, I'm sitting here thinking, why are you complaining? Life happens. Clearly, they're not just avoiding the meeting. And then I clicked. It's like, life happens, dude. You didn't get an interview. There's millions of jobs out there. Well, maybe not millions, but there's plenty of jobs out there. There's going to be something that comes up for you. You acting just as ridiculous as you think these people in this waiting room that are bitching about the facilitator not being on time or showing up. You're being as ridiculous, if not more, by throwing your sheet around while you're making your bed. So people are going to let you down. I spent 40 years of my life chasing my mother around, trying to mend her relationships with other family members, trying to mend the relationship we had, and then it evolved into me wanting to hurt her like she had hurt me. That's not somebody that I need to have in my life. You know, people with kids, I mentioned my kids. I love my kids, but I couldn't do this for them because they're going to grow up, they're going to get married, and they're going to move on. They're going to go to college, they're going to have jobs. They're not going to be there every single day. Their little tiny voices aren't going to be on the other end of the phone calling me daddy or dad or whatever. They're going to grow up. They're still going to call me dad, but it's not going to be that little cute kid voice. And then what am I going to do? If I do it for that, then once they move on and they're not available, then what do I have? Um, you know, breakups happen, death happens, your significant other might not be there for you. So what are you going to do when they go? Whether that be they find somebody else or God forbid something terrible happens, you have to learn to do this on your own. You have to do it for yourself. I expectations of other people is an absolute no-no. You cannot have any expectations for other people. People are going to let you down. You're going to let people down. They shouldn't have expectations in you either. I mean, it's a vicious cycle. I expected certain things from a family member. Today, I made a phone call. I expected the conversation to go this way, and it went nowhere near that. And again, after being declined the interview, I dialed the number with emotion. It rang, and I was completely emotionally attached to how this conversation was going to go. And it didn't go the way that I wanted it to. It went the way that I knew it was going to, which is the feelings over thought thing that we'll get into in another podcast. And so I was probably a little rude to the person that I talked to. That wasn't fair because I put expectations on this conversation to go a certain way. And once I realized that it wasn't going to go that way, I was short and hung up the phone as soon as I could. I was depending on this person to do something that, while it isn't out of the realm of possibility for them to do this for me, it's an unreasonable expectation. In addiction, you have to find a way to like yourself. It sounds really hard because, God damn it, I can hate myself as much as anybody can hate themselves. There's plenty of people out there, I'm sure, that don't like me. They got nothing on how much I don't like me sometimes. And it's a real shit sandwich when you allow yourself to beat the hell out of yourself every single time. I'm going to repeat this, but that's okay because not everybody watches every episode. I posted it several times on social media. We have about 60,000 thoughts a day in our head. I know for me, before treatment and before I try to find, I kind of found my outlet in journaling and now doing the podcast and the social media thing. Um, the majority of those 60,000 thoughts for me against myself were extremely negative. And when you take that and you put somebody else's face on it and have them say it to you, you would be like, fuck you. I'm not going to keep you around. You're not going to talk to me that way. Well, then why talk to yourself that way? And so that's why I felt I had to do this podcast tonight, because I was starting to talk to myself in a negative way again. I am doing everything that I can. I'm filling out all kinds of applications. I'm getting turned down left and right. The only reason why this one hurt is because I had I guess emotion got attached to it, because there was a direct line of communication with this lady, and she kind of gave me the impression that she was going to go to HR and say, hey, kind of like this candidate, let's do some work. And I put the expectation on that she was going to, without ever meeting me and nothing more than a conversation, that she was going to go to HR and go to bat for me. That's a ridiculous expectation. And so my cookie crumbled into much smaller pieces because I put that expectation on it. So what I'm doing is doing this podcast to talk about it, to get it out. So not only is it in here, but it comes out here and then back in through here, so I can recycle that information and have it stick. That wasn't planned. I feel like that was pretty decent. So if you're listening, write that down. You can't have ego in recovery, especially in AA. They'll tell you that. And that's not ego. That's just me being, it's not ego. But I'm going to give myself credit when fucking credit is due, because I beat myself up enough that I'm allowed to give myself some credit. So recycling that information back through, it's in here. And how many times have you thought something in here and it comes out here and you're like, whoa, that's ridiculous. So I've learned that you have to do that. And when I don't want to talk on the phone with somebody, I can do this podcast and I can talk to the dude looking back at me in the monitor, and I can hear what that dude has to say. And then I can take it in, I can hear it, and then I can recycle that information in a different way. So the point of this was supposed to be depending on people. And it's kind of been a gunshot of topics and ideas. But to my friend that is putting on all the hopes of this newfound relationship, it scares me. And I'll be quite honest. In a conversation today, I said, I'm sorry for being a dick on this. And their response was, oh, you're not being a dick. And I pulled a old school, old timer AA, and I said, oh, well, then I'll fucking try harder. Because I could sense, and I'm reading the things that I would be saying when I was in the void, when I was stuck in the void of addiction. This person, I really love this person, I care for this person or these people, and they are really against my drinking, so they're going to help keep me in line. Bullshit. I would be with my ex-fiance having a great time, and I'd have alcohol stuck. Jesus. Anybody got a breathalyzer? Yeah, I'm here by myself with all my friends. But I would stick alcohol down my fucking pants. And I would sneak in to go get a pop, and I'd buy alcohol and stuff down my pants. I'd stuck it in my sock. I'd wear long socks just to have alcohol stuck in there. I would buy alcohol while I was in the gas station and go into the gas station bathroom after buying it and chug it while I was in there. And then as long as they didn't see me drink and they could pat me down and they could, I would eat, raunchy smelling food or whatever, or go brush my teeth and could go, and they didn't smell it, I wasn't drinking. That's what my mindset was. So what this person is doing is what I was doing when I first met my ex-fiance. Is instead of, we'd have a plan, like come over on these certain nights and stay the night, there would be nights where I'm like, yeah, you know what, I'm just not feeling 100%. I'm going to stay back here. And it wasn't because I didn't feel 100%. It's because I wanted to either go to the bar and throw darts, or I wanted to play video games and drink by myself. So if I was able to rely on her to keep me sober, then I would have went there, and that would have been the commitment that I made to my sobriety was I'm going to go there every chance I can because I know that I won't drink there. And this was early on in the relationship when I did not drink when I was there. But I wasn't committed to that. So having that dependency on her to keep me sober was no bueno. That is no good. And again, just as easily as I took what the lady said for the interview about talking to HR on my behalf, I took that as I envisioned this woman in full plate mail with a sword rushing into battle and saying, "This guy is great. He's amazing. He worked at a treatment center right out of treatment. He was a tech. He did a great job. Look at his resume. Look at all the safety background that he has." You can do that in a relationship too. You can think this person is going to save me, but the moment that person doesn't pick up their call, that phone call, doesn't respond to the text when you expect them to, it's an open door excuse. So love your people with all your heart. Love them the best you can. But if you cannot decide in your mind and your heart that you personally are worth sobriety and you are worth having a life that you don't have to sneak money and sneak away to the gas station. I would go, when I was married, I would go to the gas station to put gas in my wife's vehicle, and I'd go in and I'd prepay. And I'd put 30 or 40 in the tank, and then I'd take out 10 or 20 in cash. So the receipt would just show the total. So she would think that I put 40 or 50 in the gas tank when in actuality I only put 20 or 30. I take the cash, go to the liquor store, buy the liquor, keep it in the vehicle until everybody went to sleep, and then I'd go get it. I do the same thing at the grocery store. I'd get cash back and just forget to put in the M-Perks so that I could get the cash back, so I'd have the cash and there would be no paper trail of me going to the liquor store, because every time I used the debit card to go to the liquor store, I was found out. So I had to manipulate that. We are master manipulators, and it's sad to say, but it's the truth. So I don't know how long this thing has been going. I'm trying to keep these a little shorter in hopes that people will be more inclined to sit and listen to them, maybe more frequent and smaller until I get that job, or other avenues open up. So again, thank you if you stuck around for the entire time. I appreciate you listening. It really means a lot when you like and comment this stuff. It means something to me. I have no expectations of you to do so, but I do appreciate it, and it's good to see. And I promise you, if you comment on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or any of the other outlets that this is on, or you give the ratings, it's going to move this thing up, and people are going to be able to see it, and it's going to show up more often for them. And we could together as a team, we could help save somebody. So find us Spotify, find us on YouTube, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and there's a bunch others that I just realized that are there. As a courtesy of some of these sites that I'm using to upload the podcast. So thank you. And we'll see you soon, man. Stay classy, San Diego. Have a good night, everybody.